Well, who am I? So I'm Becky. I have been coming to King's for about 4 years. And when Dave Ramage said to me, would I give my testimony? I was like, yes. Yes, Dave, because I've got a story I want to tell you guys. And I really felt God laid it on my heart months ago that this was a story for some people in this room, maybe people listening at home. I think storytelling is one of the most powerful things that we can do. Jesus was one of the best storytellers that's ever lived. And we learn so much about learning from people's, from illustration, from story, from metaphor. So yeah, my story is a story of transformation. It's not my salvation story. Traditionally, testimonies are when you become a Christian. I became a Christian as a small child. I was really privileged to grow up in a Christian home where I was taken to church. And I gave my life to Jesus probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I was baptized, and faith was always something that I grew up with, which I think we forget what a privilege that is to have that from early life. However, my relationship with God has been an interesting one. I want you to sort of imagine a bungee cord, those things that can stretch really, really far. God has always had a hold of me, but I've allowed a bungee cord to allow me to stretch quite far from God at different seasons in my life. I always remember my mum saying to me, Becky, you're one of these people who seems to need to experience things to learn wisdom. I sadly couldn't listen to the wisdom of other people. It was always about me experiencing stuff and then learning through that. And so throughout my life, I've played this game with God where I would be like, ooh, there's a shiny thing over here. Let me go and try that out, God. And I'd stretch my bungee cord, and then he'd pull me back in, and I'd be back in relationship with him again. And then once again it would happen, something bright and shiny over here that promised something else to me, and I would stretch my bungee cord away from God. You see, what sometimes happens when you live like that is that you can stretch your bungee cord so far from God. And about 8 years ago, that's what I did. I was way over here, and the cord was fraying. Like, I'm serious, there's not much elastic left anymore. I'd started to live in a way that was not true to who I am. I started to discover what a selfish person I am when Jesus isn't in me. When you've known Jesus most of your life, you can start to think that you're quite a good, nice person. But actually, see, when I'm not close to Jesus, I am incredibly selfish. I started to make some really poor choices that challenged my entire life, that challenged my family life. And I was really a really dark place. You probably wouldn't have known it to look at me, but deep down inside, I was really empty. And I really didn't know who I was, and I didn't like who I was. I still belonged to Jesus. I still belonged to God. He's never let go of that bungee cord, but I was away over here. Now, the interesting thing is that I am a mum, and the one thing that was really important to me was that I wanted my girls to at least have an understanding of God, of faith. If I didn't take them to church, they were never going to get that opportunity to make a decision for themselves. So the one thing that kept me coming to church was probably my kids. And I really felt that I wanted them to at least have the same experience that I had. I think the community of church is good. I wanted them to feel and to know that. So that's what happened. The pandemic hit, and I think a lot of us can recognize the pandemic changed our lives quite dramatically. At that point, it felt like a good time for us as a family to find a different church, mainly so that the kids would have other people around them their own age, and sort of just see a different way of doing church. So we started to come to King's, and that's probably about 4 years ago now. This is a brilliant church. I hope we all appreciate how amazing it is. It's not perfect because we're in it, and it never will be perfect because we're in it. But it is a great place of wise teaching. There is an amazing community, and through time, I've built relationships, friendships here, and as a result, God started to talk to me, and he started to nudge me into saying, Becky, this isn't who you are. This numb, burnt out, middle-aged, cynical, sort of cold, worn-out person. It's not who I made you to be. This isn't who you were designed to be, and it's not the life you're meant to have. I think the Spirit is quite amazing because for different people, he works differently. For me, it was a whisper, and a whisper became a nudge. The nudge became an action, and suddenly these strange opportunities started to open up in my life. Now, you maybe recognize me standing up here with a microphone. If I told you that until 2 years ago, I never, ever spoke out loud in groups, you might be surprised. This is not who I have been before now. I still remember at my mum's funeral being the only person in my family who couldn't speak. I could never get up on a stage and speak to a group of people. You see, I believe that this is spirit-given, that God is doing something in me and transforming me and turning me into a communicator. The weird thing is that then, as I have stepped up, all these weird opportunities, they're not weird because God knows what he's doing. They are God-given opportunities started to arise. I then was asked to become a columnist in a women's magazine, a Christian women's magazine. I should probably add, for those that don't know, I'm a doctor, so I'm involved in the health world and in the well-being world. And so I was asked to become a columnist. Again, the irony of this is that I went to school at a time where grammar wasn't really being taught. So for such a time as this, God chose me to become a columnist when Grammarly and other IT systems allow me to sort out my commas and my apostrophes and everything else. Then I've been asked to do lots of podcasts. I've been on Christian radio. And suddenly, as I stepped into it, more and more people were like, Becky, will you come and talk here? Will you come and talk at this? I like what you say. You have some wisdom. And I'm like, what? That's not me. That's not who I ever was. But slowly, this new opportunities have started to arise. The thing is, as God was leading me into this new way of being, I also felt that my career as a GP was probably coming to an end as an NHS GP. I've been an NHS doctor for about 20 years, but I'd gotten to a stage where I no longer really believed the care I could give people was enough. See, I don't think it's just about health or mental health. I think spiritual health is so important. It's not something I can talk about within the NHS. And so I felt very strongly that I needed to start to move into a different way of practicing medicine. And what does that look like? Well, in March of this year, I left my job. And that meant leaving behind security, leaving behind a really nice pension, leaving behind the belief that I thought that my security was built in. But what I've realized as I've done that is that's not where my security is. My security doesn't lie in the NHS or in anything else. It lies in what God is calling me into. The song we sang this morning became my anthem for 2025. There's this line, you call me out upon the water, the great unknown where feet may fail. I still don't know how this is all going to pan out. I'm 3 months into this new life. And what I'm finding is that doors open as I step towards them. Some of them don't, and that's okay because I know I need to pivot. I need to find where God's taking me. But I really believe that when we step out into what God calls us to do, he meets us there. He gives us that ability to step into the things that are for us. What's really interesting is that when you step into who you're meant to be, the world starts to notice. So suddenly my gift of communication, whatever that is, and I still can't define it, the world's asked me to use it. So suddenly I've been on Scotland Tonight as an expert voice. I've been asked onto the radio. I've been asked onto podcasts. I've been asked by Scottish Government to be involved in a women's health project and do talks and keynote speaking within that. And I'm like, who is this person that is being asked to do this? Because this was never who I was. See, I believe that there are spiritual gifts that are given to us that are not just for these walls. They're not to remain within the church. If God's giving you a gift, it needs to be out there. It needs to be out there where he wants to get his message to people. And I think so often we feel safe and we stay safe within the walls of our church. There's a really amazing verse in Isaiah that says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." My life had definitely become a wilderness and a wasteland. And I don't believe I'm alone. I think there's probably people sitting in here who are maybe in midlife or older life or maybe even just in their 20s, and they're feeling like their life is becoming a bit of a wilderness and a bit of a wasteland. See, God has laid in my heart that he wants to say to you that there is power and potential in this room that's ready to be released. Now, there are things that are keeping that power and potential down. And I want to share with you the 3 things that I had to overcome, my 3 challenges and struggles, in the hope that they help you. I think that the devil is the master of lies, and these are the lies that are being told to us that keep us down. We all want to see change in our world, don't we? We want to see new beginnings. We need to see hope. But we have to understand that that's going to come from us, that we need to step into who God calls us to be. The first thing that I had to learn was I had to learn to forgive myself. So when I was stretched out on that bungee cord, I did some really stupid things. And I think as Christians, we're good at remembering we're forgiven at salvation, but we forget that forgiveness is there for us throughout our lives. It's not just at the moment of salvation. You know, when I couldn't forgive myself, what I realized it meant was that I didn't really believe that what Jesus did was enough. If I can't forgive the things I've done wrong, that's saying that what he did on the cross, well, that's good for some people, but it's not enough for me to forgive myself. We talk a lot about forgiving others, but if you're carrying guilt and shame, that's not meant to be in you. That's meant to be left there. And can I encourage you that if you feel that you can't step into something because there's stuff in your past that you can't forgive yourself for, can I ask you to just leave that at the cross today? That's what I had to do. I had to leave it behind. I had to truly start to understand what redemption is. See, it's not like we forgive people where we still remember what's happened. When you're forgiven by God, it's gone. It's no longer seen. It's no longer visible. That's what redemption is. The next thing I had to understand was that I thought I'd be doing it in my own strength. I am known as being an overscheduler and an overplanner. I put too much into our diaries. And as a result, I'm often too busy. I don't have capacity to do things. I'm just too tired to do things. So when I started to feel that God was calling me into doing something else, I was like, oh, that's nice for other people, but I'm too busy. I haven't got time for that. I haven't got capacity. What I realize is that you don't do it on your own strength. You do it when it's a God-given gift and you're being asked to use it. Then God gives you what you need. When you step up, he steps up right beside you. And so I had to understand the true power of the Spirit and what it gives you. Now, that doesn't mean you don't factor in rest. We've been learning about that through church in the last few weeks, how important rest is. But it also means that you need to understand that when you're asked to do something, you're not doing it in your own power. The other thing that I really had to challenge myself is that I'd realized that I'd started to worship at the altar of comfort. I'd started to worship the God of comfort as opposed to the God of the universe. I started to believe that what the world was telling me about what mattered, that comfort comes with a new car, with a new holiday, with a nice house. I had to start to realize that I needed to let go of the things that I thought were going to bring me joy. And I had to realize that really what God was calling me into was going to be the thing that fulfilled me. See, I think as Christians, we often live our lives as if this is just a waiting room for heaven. We don't really step into the fullness of what God wants us to do here. We sit back and we just kind of float on by because we think, well, you know, that life that Jesus promised when he said, I've come to give them life and for them to have it to the full. We sort of think, oh, that's about heaven. It's not, it's about our time here. He wants us to be abundantly full. He wants us to be overflowing with joy. And, you know, whether you're 8, 18, or 80, there are gifts placed in you that really need to be released, that when you step into them, that is where you'll get your fullness, and that is where you get your joy. We sang another song this morning, and I'm just going to bring up the words again here, that was called Made for More. It's got this amazing line in it that sort of says, you know, I know who I am because I know who you are. The cross of salvation was only the start. Now I'm chosen, free and forgiven. I have a future and it's worth the living. And it's this line here, because I wasn't made to be tending a grave. Do you know, my life had got to a stage where I was just tending a grave. I was just getting by. I wasn't living in fullness. I wasn't letting the Spirit do the stuff that I was capable of. I was just kind of letting time pass me by. I don't know where you're at in this room this morning. You know, maybe there is stuff untapped in you that you need to release, and maybe this is the day that you need to give that over to God. I'm going to ask the band to come back up and we're going to sing this song. And I want you to use this time now as a time to just reflect on where you are. What is God saying to you? Is there things you need to let go of? Are there challenges in your own life that you need to start trusting God for? Do you carry guilt and shame? Is it time to leave that behind? My prayer for you this morning is that somehow my story would encourage you that you've got a story to live out, that the Spirit wants to do things in you as well, and that it doesn't matter how old you are, that you can be transformed at any age. And it doesn't just stop. The transformation is a continuous process till we get to heaven. Thank you.